When I think about how I entered into the cult and where I came from, I grew up in what seemingly is regular Christianity, regular church. But there was something in that experience where there was a lack of information, a lack of question that made me want to search for more answers. I wanted to get more in depth. I was nervous about this life and what comes of it. And so I was searching, and then this experience came to me. And through that experience, I learned a lot there. It was definitely an interesting experience, but it was time for me to go. And when it was time for me to go, it was nothing. I actually told myself that I wasn't going to record this week because I wanted to clean some things up, make sure that I understood what I was doing. And here I am recording. And I want to share with you how I got here and how I won't be here too long. But I realized that there's an algorithm, and it's so interesting. I changed the name to this channel to Dear Creator Algorithm, because this algorithm also is considering the prompts that we put out. It's considering, what we're searching for, what we're looking for. And I realized that that's a real thing. So I was talking to someone, and in the nicest way possible, still with care and gentleness, they said, you talk too much. And I was thinking like, yeah, I know that about myself. That's part of who I am, is that I talk too much. And through the discussion, I also realized that I always have questions and I want to go deeper. And I realized that's something about myself as well, that I'm interested in learning. I'm interested in going beyond the surface level, and I have questions. And I sat there and I thought about it, and I said, this is really who I am. I genuinely want to know people's stories, and I think it's important to know people's stories. And this is why I have my podcast, because there's so many things that you learn from other people's stories, and there's so many different angles where you connect based off of the perspective that you choose. And I'm always choosing to look at what I can learn. I'm also always in discovery mode. And I find it interesting to learn people and to hear their stories. But one thing I think is most important about storytelling is the other person who needs to hear your story and where they are in the journey. If you decide not to tell your story, it could delay, how we're all interconnected. So it's your time. It's your season to start telling your story. It's your moment to realize that you're not supposed to have all of this happen to you or go through these experiences to keep it to yourself. There's this sharing mentality. To give, it's better to receive. I think about that beyond money. It's this giving of our life experiences where it might not be as tragic and dramatic as we make it. The more we tell these stories that connect us, the more we tell these stories that can heal the next person, or not even heal, but give them an option or an opportunity to see something different, to know something different, because you decided to just share with them. And on the other end, you have to be in a position to know, do I want to take this opportunity, or is this opportunity not for me? And all of that is a delicate dance. When I first started this YouTube channel, it was inspired by my leaving of what I call a cult organization. And I just wondered, how did I get there? Why? How did I get there? And how do people see me? And why was I so passionate and interested in learning and knowing? And it did lead me there. But I'm so thankful that in this experience, I was able to see, and I say this with gentleness because I know that people in the same experience had different experiences, but I was able to take my personal experience and extract what I was supposed to learn from it. And what I actually did, and I wrote this book. I wrote this book in like right after I left, maybe a year after I left. and it's called Brown Girl All Caught Up. And when I wrote this book, I had no idea what I was doing. I just wanted to get it out there, and I was writing all my notes in my iPad, and I was just collecting things and making it all make sense. And what I realized in this book is it's also inspired by I statements that was also connected to, what I was learning in astrology at the time. And so I started to get quiet about this book because, first of all, I wasn't really sure if anyone understood me. I'm actually going to put up one of the reviews that actually one of the reviews that it was like a 3 out of 5, and it was basically saying how it was confusing, but then it was brilliance that came out of it. And I was just like, yeah, that's really nice to say. But it's so interesting because I always start with confusion. I remember when I was in high school and we would have these literature circles, which was my favorite, in AP literature class. And I wasn't even sure how I got to these classes because the way my mind works, there were people around me who were so intelligent, but I knew that the only thing that was actually keeping me in AP classes or keeping me with good grades is that following directions and, turn it into work, but also my creativity. And so I would come to literature class and I would just be listening and I would hear everyone talking. And sometimes I didn't even read at that moment, but I would start off with confusion and I could see everyone's confusion in their eyes. And then the aha moment, and I would bring it all together. And I didn't know how it was happening, but I remember always experiencing the fact that there was a lot of confusion at first, and then it makes sense near the end, which is one reason why I'm still here on YouTube, because I know that there has been a lot of confusion. I've been through a lot of experiences and journeys through my thoughts. And one thing I want to say is I love it here because I'm really doing all the things that I ever wanted to do. Everything that I said that I wanted to do, I'm doing it. And I'm doing it in a way where it's satisfying. I don't really I've never been the type of person that needs people to give me the applause because I was in my own world and, I like myself. Okay. I like myself. I think that I'm an interesting person, which is probably why I talk a lot. But anyway, I just wanted to say something about the algorithm, and I'm going to close out with just a little story. But the algorithm, when that person mentioned that I talk too much, I remember, I know that they did it in love, right? I know that they were saying it, and they also said that they love when I talk, right? So it was, but sometimes that, I need to, talk less. And so I was just thinking about it. And the next, and I kind of went through a day, like the day was good, but I just kind of went through the day, and across my screen comes up a article. And the article was about people who talk too much and what it says about them. So at first I said, don't click on the article. Don't click on the article. But I clicked on the article and I looked at the items. And I said, yeah, maybe. Yeah. I don't know about that one. But I just remember looking at the article and I was just like, how did this article get here? Why is this article here? Like, I know we always talk about like our phones and how it's picking up on our conversations. And more, I think that's being evident to us that that's what's going on. But it also teaches me, like, in my everyday life and in that mindful practice, that what I'm thinking and what I'm saying, all of that is a part of my algorithm. And I have a choice to consider what's coming to me or reject. So here's what happened today, which is why I decided to record. One is I wrote this book and I kept thinking, okay, it's time for me to rewrite. I have a new cover page for it. And I wanted to, remove the pen name that I used for this book. And because when I wrote this book, I didn't want anybody to know that I was in this experience. And I really even wasn't as transparent as possible about my experience. I was more interested in just the cult mentality, your mindset. And this is why I wanted to avoid talking about my cult experience too much on the page because, one, when you're in a cult, people are like, how'd you get in a cult? You can't be trusted. But the other thing is because I wanted to focus on mindset. I wanted to focus on quality questions. I really wanted us to get in depth, and I still do. I want to be here, but I get more and more clear about that every day. But I wanted that to be the priority here, is that you are thinking about what triggers you, why you think that way, why you gravitate to things. Because being in a cult-like organization, which is always so weird to say because I don't want people to think that I'm weird and crazy, which I know that I probably am in some ways outside the cult. It follows you, right? Because when I think about how I entered into the cult and where I came from, I grew up in what seemingly is regular Christianity, regular church. But there was something in that experience where there was a lack of information, a lack of question that made me want to search for more answers. I wanted to get more in depth. I was nervous about this life and what comes of it. And so I was searching. And then this experience came to me. And through that experience, I learned a lot there. It was definitely an interesting experience, but it was time for me to go. And when it was time for me to go, it was nothing. I remember deciding that I was going to leave this organization, like just walking through the park near the church. And I said, yeah, I'm just going to go. And I called one of my favorite cousins and I said, well, I'm out the cult now. I remember defining it as a cult there. Like I knew that everybody was like probably talking behind my back and said, oh my gosh, she's so weird and she's going, she's doing this and that's what they do and do. So I called my cousin. I said, well, I'm out the cult now. We could talk. Like, I'm sorry about all the things. I was so nonchalant. I know that that's the weirdest thing that I do, but people in my life are like, you just can't do that. You got to say hi. You got to say bye. I just start conversations. And and this was one of my cousins that, she's like she tells you how it is. She's a straight shooter. And I knew that it was the safest place to go is to tell her first because of how honest and transparent she would be with me. She wouldn't kind of like beat around the bush or, and try to act all weird around me. She would laugh with me after I say, yeah, I just left the call. I'm here now. We can go out and do stuff. And so interesting about me choosing to call her is because, we didn't even grow up together around each other much. We actually met each other later. So I have like cousins that I've been around since I was younger, but we met each other later. And when I got a little bit into my adulthood, she is not here anymore. And I remember getting that call, and it stood out to me because we were young, and the way that the reason why she's not here anymore was such a subtle thing. And I just thought like, life is so fragile and we have no idea. The way that she exited the earth was nothing crazy. It was very normal things that people engage in their everyday. And I remember it really was the first time someone in my family or anyone that I knew closely had died. And I was crying and I'm not that much of a crier, especially at this time of my life. I was, very emotionalist. And I was just like, we were a year apart. And I was wondering, like, am I crying because she's gone? Yes. I'm also crying, I think, because, wow, people actually do die in life. But anyway, I tell that story because life is important and it's gentle and it's fragile. And I know that I want to spend as much of my time thinking on the good that's still a value here. I want to spend my time with those quality questions. I want to spend my time talking to people and getting to know them and learning their stories and then promoting it and putting it out there just in case someone else had that question and they didn't know how to presented, or if they needed that story and didn't even know that they needed it. So I'm going to be doing two things here on the channel. I'm going to continue with the podcast. I'm going to be continuing with the questions I have for people to storytell. And I'm also going to be going through a creative process, because when I wrote this book, I was at a different place than I am now, where when I look at some of the games that I put in here, I like games, okay, and some of the inspiration of the astrology and the I statements, they still can exist. But I just wanted to go back through this book, and I wanted to take you all through that process. So you'll see some content on here talking about our mindset and reviewing content from social media and just the way people think and how we can go through our own journal assignments. But you'll also see me go through the creator process of going through this book again. And then also I have a children's book that I wanted to go over again. And it's mostly because of the pen name that I had. And how I want to show you how I do this, so that if you are a creator who's interested in storytelling and want to put out your own stories, there's two lanes here. I focus on content for children, because I know that when we're younger, the prompts that we provide to our children. When I say prompts, we talk about like ChatGPT and like provide me with these 10. But the prompts that we share with our children, the way that we speak life into them is important. And so I remember, coming out of this organization and realizing like there's just things I didn't know, and I just want to go through that process, even though I still don't know it, through questions and even imagination. I was a really big Barney fan when I was growing up, but I didn't want nobody to know that when I was younger or in high school. But I was a Barney fan. And Barney teaches you about imagination. And so when I wrote my first children book, I knew that I didn't have all of the keys, but I'm imagining what that looks like if I put myself in a position to learn with my children the things that I did not learn. So part here is the parenting content, still of our mindset and thinking, but with our children, but also realizing that some of us are still these little children that grew up and still in a discovery mode, still in play mode. And I'm one of those people, and I realize that sometimes I come off and I'm like, I'm just very childlike. And I used to think that was a flaw of mine, because I would look at people and I would see like, oh, she's so whoosh, 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 whoosh. Okay, when she walks, she wiggles, and I like it, And I would just think that, wow, that's a woman. Like that's, but more than just our outsider appearance and our aesthetic is what makes a woman. It's really like, who's that little girl growing up into? How is she being cultivated? What does she hear in her head? Why does she want to present herself this way to the world? What is her inconsiderations, and what's her inconsistencies? What is her insecurities? Right? And how do we accept that and be comfortable with those and still learn how to grow up? Now, I see some of the content that talks about our childhood, and some of us are still children, but maybe we are in this discovery mode, this being on earth, and all the things that are happening that we don't know how to explain is an opportunity for us to be creators and create those questions that put us on that path of, what does it look like to be a grown-up? Like really grown up, not just you look grown and you act grown and you say something grown, or you say only when grown people speak, or only when a grown person, what is the saying they say when you were little? Like, don't speak to a grown person. Never mind, whatever. What is it? Oh, I need to get it before I leave. Only grown people talk. I forget. It's a saying. If anybody knows it, put it in the chat. I cannot remember, but it's like this saying that I used to hear growing up about, being grown folks' business. And the funny thing is, some of these grown folks' businesses were still childlike. And I noticed that, like, even when I'm navigating this world and I look at the people who are adults in my life, and I see, and I'm like, oh, they're still babies. They're still fighting like children. And I can't even judge them, because who taught them? We really have to get invested in this, like this listening, I talk a lot, but I'm practicing how to listen more. And when I start to listen, I think I put the puzzle pieces together. So last note. This is why I actually put this video up. I said a whole bunch because I'm trying to get it all covered. I I woke up this morning and I was all like, I needed prayer to get me through the morning because I knew that something felt different. Not bad, not good. I just felt different. And sometimes when I'm working on a project, in the morning time, I will put on YouTube and watch a video to kind of like, hear noise as I'm working through the project. And I look to see what I wanted to watch today. And usually I see like videos about why I left Christianity or why I left Jehovah's Witness or why I'm an atheist or why I don't believe in God anymore, or why I'm deconstructing or why I was in a cult. I see those videos all the time because of my algorithm. But this time I seen a video and the title stood out to me and it mentioned something about a cult. And usually I don't care too much to watch them right now, or I really stay away from the cult ones. I really try to look for those who left a faith and learn more about them. And I try to get them to an interview. But I clicked on this video and I seen the person on the thumbnail, but I didn't know the person from the thumbnail. And I clicked on the video and the video comes up and I looked at the girl and I said, I know her. I know this girl. And I looked at the name and I said, I know this girl. And she's talking about her experience in the cult, which I wrote in this book. Brown Girl All Caught Up. That's me being all caught up in brown. And I said, wait a second. That's so-and-so. This is crazy. And I'm listening to her story. I listened to the video. And it's so interesting because it's now I hear similarities. I'm like, okay, yeah, I know that. But then I hear all of these other things that I didn't even know was happening. When I came out the cult, I learned other people's stories. But my story, I think somewhat safe and protected besides the whole mind effery. But there were other things happening in the church where I just was so blind to. I was like, could not believe that was happening. And the fact that we were all kind of in this organization, and I don't know what people are thinking, but some of the people are still there. And I used to think like, oh, they're definitely coming out. They are going to come out, and they haven't come out yet. But I seen her come out, and I remember her like from the experience, and I remember her being so sweet. One of the first people that really, brought me in and started talking to me and stuff when I got there. Because I said, oh my goodness, she's out. And I think it slipped in my head like, wow, people are coming out. People actually had the same thoughts and questions. But I didn't think that it was really happening because I remember that there were people I thought should have been out and haven't been out yet. But I'm like, whoa, what in the world? She's out. And what she's saying on this video, like, that's crazy. But the algorithm, y'all, because even though I knew her in the organization, when it came to coming out the church, I made sure that I didn't talk it was like only a few people that I ended up talking to. And even then it was just like, okay, I don't want any connections with it. But I made sure that I was clear. Like I try to make it so that people couldn't find me, which is why one of the reasons why I have this pen name. It's like, I don't want you to find me. I don't want y'all to know me no more. I'm going to go live my new life and be mindful of the way I think. I was like, how in the world did she end up in my algorithm? How did she end up in my news feed? Like, this is so wild. But it reminds me that there are things that I am still working through. There are things that I'm still getting comfortable with sharing because as I see myself going through this experience and through this journey, I have a lot of grace for myself and I have a lot of understanding, and I see it from a very mindful approach. But I know that I deal with a world that will make assumptions about who I am based off of my experience. And I don't want to be in the position to have to explain myself. And sometimes I think about, like, do I even share this with people? Because then they might think, like, why did I end up there? Why did I accept those beliefs? But there's so many questions that you would have to get answered for you to understand the truth, to remove your assumptions. And this is why I stand here on this YouTube page and saying, like, we're going to keep with the questions. We're going to keep exploring what prompts and what algorithms will get us closer to whatever it is, whatever path that is. So for me, what prompts are going to help me rewrite my story? And not even rewrite, but just add on and have new layers to it. What is it that I want to gain from the experience myself, and how do I want to serve others through this creative process? But also, don't forget the storytelling. Don't forget the connection between people, and don't forget to review the content out in this world and be mindful of how you respond to it. So I know this sounds so passionate, y'all, but I am ready for life. I am ready to live life. And the first step to living life is really getting to know yourself. Those are the questions that you have. Those are the personality traits that you have. Is there a understanding on why I do talk too much? Is there insecurity behind me talking too much? I don't know. I just love talking, and I don't see it that way. But there's so many things that you can learn about yourself that's going to be important for us navigating not only the earth in this, and this is my opinion. So anyone who wants to be here with me and go on this journey and desire to not keep themselves in a corner because they don't know how the world sees them, to not be intimidated by a challenge because of how you see people perform, but to really tap in and activate a power that you may have not known exists. There is something about the prompts and the algorithms in our own lives that's attracting us and aligning us with the content that we receive. And so if my content is always making me angry, if my content always put me in an argumentative state, if my content makes my nervous system a little uneasy, if my content makes me feel discouraged, is there another flip side where my content actually does inspire me to change, inspires me to impact, inspires me to use my gift? If any creators are in that domain where they know that there is a story inside of them, and they know that there is a lesson that they learned that could be helpful to someone else, there's so many different outlets for us. We can express that through interviews. We can express that through creating journaling prompts for ourselves. We can even express that through creating our own personal books or creating books for our children. And that is everything that you will experience here in 2025. And I hope that you all click on the like button and subscribe if you are interested in that experience. But I'm ready. I'm so ready. Until next time, hold on to you as much as you can. Hold on to your health, your well-being, and your mind. Be mindful. Bye.